How did you react the last time you disagreed with someone? Did you go quiet and hope it passed? Did you raise your voice and try to win your point? Or maybe you tried to smooth things over, even if it meant swallowing your frustration. Now, picture yourself at work. Your idea just got dismissed in a meeting. Did you lean in with questions? Did you shut down and stew in silence? Did you make a quick joke to keep the peace? A different context, same you. Welcome to your conflict personality. This is the inner reflex that shows up every time things get tense. This episode explores why that tug-of-war response is less about the argument and more about the habits that you've developed to protect connection or preserve control. This is a classic Rethink moment. Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. David Zierk, and this is the Rethink podcast, where we pause to examine the patterns that shape how we lead and relate and resolve. Today, we're talking about one of my favorite topics, conflict. Not just the moment it sparks, but the person you become when things heat up. We all have a go-to conflict personality. What's important to remember is your conflict personality isn't who you are, it's the person you become. And the goal of this episode isn't to fix it. It's to name it, understand it, and when needed, upgrading it. Because how you handle conflict determines the emotional climate of your relationships at home and at work. Let's start by breaking this down and asking ourselves, what is a conflict personality? It's the habitual way you approach or avoid or navigate tension. It's shaped by your upbringing, your personal temperaments, your dispositions, what your parents would call your attitude, cultural norms, and your past relational experiences, good, bad, and let's never have those again. There are 5 main conflict styles. So I'm going to go to my whiteboard and call those up. These are the traditional names on my whiteboard right now. And I'm going to put down some more playful names in just a moment. But let's start off with understanding this graph. There's a horizontal line and a vertical line. The horizontal line is how cooperative you are. So going to that axis, we can say, oh, you're either really high or low on the cooperativeness scale. And then on the vertical scale, typically called the y-axis, you can either be high in assertiveness or low. So there we have it. And now we're going to begin populating this and helping you understand the conflict styles to identify not only just your conflict style, but the people that are important in your life, whether it's at work or at home. So let's start off by the lower left-hand corner. This is where a person who is low in cooperativeness, low in assertiveness, and they're called the avoider. These are people who are really famous for dodging confrontation, hoping issues resolve on their own. They might be calm on the outside, but they're often very unsettled inside. I think they're better known as what I call the disappearing act. Let me write that in there. Disappearing act. These are the people, they're better known as the disappearing act. They've perfected the art of strategic retreat. You know that you're dealing with an avoider if they're saying, if I don't see it, it's not real, or it's not that bad. They push it away. They pretend that it doesn't happen or it's not present. They avoid it. Makes sense. I don't know if it works, but it makes sense. Now let's scooch over to the little bit to the right and start talking about a person who is high in cooperativeness, but very low in assertiveness. Now, what's really interesting about assertiveness is we could also label the y-axis control. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but it's the sense of control that you have about yourself and the world around you. So the accommodator is low on that scale. So because of their high in cooperativeness, the accommodator is the person who puts others first to keep the peace, often at their own expense. It's kind of like their strategy is harmony wins, but resentment brews. What I like to call these people is what I call the yes machine. Favorite word, even before you get done asking a question, they've already raised their hands or said yes. While sweet and selfless, they often forget that their opinions matter too. Now, let's go upstairs. Let's go to a person who is very assertive, but not cooperative at all. This is in the upper left-hand corner, called the competitor. They want to win, sometimes at all costs. They're great in crises, but rough on collaboration. A great name for this style is the gladiator. A great name for this style is the gladiator. Winning is the name of the game. Now, what they don't know from a relationship intelligence standpoint, swapping their sword for a handshake, it would change things very, very quickly. Now that we've covered some ground about the avoider and the accommodator and the competitor, let's go to the middle ground, right where the compromiser is. You probably already have a good sense of what they're good at. They're kind of cooperative, they're kind of assertive, and they seek the middle ground. They're practical, but sometimes sell short the best solution. I call these people the split the difference dealers. Split the difference. Let's agree to disagree. Famous quote for such people. While fair-minded, they often don't get to the heart of the matter. So you can see that there's relative weaknesses and some strengths for each of these conflict styles so far. Now, what we're shooting for in the upper right-hand corner is the collaborator. High in cooperativeness, high in assertiveness, and they believe in win-win. They talk it out, they listen deep, but they know it takes effort and willingness from everyone. This style is what I call the puzzle solver. Conflict isn't a battle. To the collaborator and the puzzle solver, conflict is a riddle waiting to be cracked. What's important to keep in mind is that these conflict styles aren't fixed identities. They're tendencies. There are habits. They're overlearned behaviors. There's patterns that we fall into when emotions run high. Recognizing yours is the first step in navigating conflict with more skill and less regret. So let's bring this to life. Take a couple planning a vacation. She wants nature, he wants nightlife. She avoids conflict and says, whatever you want. It ends up miserable on the trip. The resentment surfaces later over something completely unrelated. That's the accommodator in action. Silencing herself to avoid tension, but losing connection in the long run. Maybe you know someone like that. Maybe that's who you are. The accommodator, the person who seeks the middle ground. Now let's bring it into the workplace. I'll go this way. It's so funny. Okay. Okay. Now let's bring these conflict styles into the workplace and see what happens. In a high stakes product meeting, a senior engineer pushes back hard on a proposal. Convinced their plan is best, the energy shifts. People retreat. No one wants to challenge them. The engineer walks out believing they won, but the team walks out feeling disengaged. Classic competitor move. High control, low collaboration. Now, what's interesting, in both cases, the problem isn't disagreement. The problem is how we're wired to handle it and whether we're aware enough to choose a different approach. That's the task at hand. Being aware of your conflict style and asking yourself, is that style controlling me or am I in control of it? It's giving yourself a choice. So let's bring this to a call to action. This week, get curious about how you show up when things get heated. Ask yourself, which conflict personality do I default to? Am I a yes machine? Puzzle solver? Gladiator? If I asked another person to describe my conflict personality using some of these playful words, what would they share with you? Be a good insight. So which conflict personality do I default to? Then, what am I protecting? Why is my conflict style showing up? What is its motivation? Am I protecting my ego, the relationship, my reputation? Or am I just trying to keep a peace of mind? And then what would it look like to respond and not react? So let's try a reframe. This is where rethinking comes into play. If I usually avoid, can I speak up once? So if I am that disappearing act guy, can I show up and speak up once? See what happens. If I usually compete, the gladiator, can I ask one curious question? You'd be surprised how curiosity really calms things down and takes away that domineering spirit you might have. And if I usually accommodate, split the difference, can I express a preference? Can I actually step up and step into a situation, give voice to my opinion, offer it, see what happens? Now, conflict doesn't have to mean disconnection. Sometimes it's the most honest bridge to deeper understanding. Remember, underneath every conflict is an unmet need. And that's the reason why I created relationship intelligence, is to understand what conflict is trying to teach us. And we do that by getting underneath it, being curious and asking, what do I need? What does the other person need? And by doing so, you'll be more in control of your conflict style rather than your style being in control of you. So thanks for tuning in to the Rethink podcast. Here's what I want you to remember. Conflict isn't the enemy. It's your unexamined conflict habits. Those are worth rethinking. In this episode, if it made you reflect on how you fight or freeze or fix things, you're already halfway to change. For more tools and worksheets, visit davidzierk.com. Till next time, keep rethinking your wiring, because the patterns you notice are the ones you can evolve.